I've got some simple scale questions for you.
Okay.
Buckets to drums. I mentioned that's that's a big jump in scale going from buckets to drums. At what hive count or size or volume does it make sense to go ahead and do that? Because to move to drums, you're either going to have a Tommy lift on a truck or a loading dock, a barrel truck, hand barrel truck at minimum. Forklift would be better. Your concrete floors are going to have to be rated for the weight of all this stuff.
Right, yeah.
So a 4-inch slab may not do it.
It does not do it. And if 3 drums high on a slab does not do it.
Yeah. So how thick is your?
Well, ours is 5 to 6 inches depending on what part of the place you're in, and it's 5,000 psi concrete. It's very hard concrete. So our concrete slab in this facility costs us more than the building.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, we have I can still remember the number. It was $101,000 for the concrete slab for this one building. Yeah.
Given that infrastructure, at what scale does it make sense to start making that jump?
This is a vague answer, but it's how I approached it. Whenever I got to a place, now keep in mind my earlier statement that I financed everything I ever done. I came into this with less than zero money. I was actually already in debt. The way I've always figured out whether to buy the next generation of equipment was I try to do the math and see if it could pay its own payments. Even if it didn't outright save me money or make me money, if it would pay its own payments, I would buy it. And then when the payments were done, of course, it would at that time start saving me money. And invariably when I did that, I would find out before it was done being paid off that it had already gotten me to the point where it was paying me dividends, everything. The Tommy lift, the bigger extractor, the forklift, and almost in every case, after I'd had that piece of equipment for a month or two, I'd say, "Why didn't I do this sooner?" I'm a frugal person too, believe it or not, even though what you see has all been financed and all of this stuff. But I'm very hesitant to spend money, and quite often I'll just run a piece of equipment into the ground when I should have purchased a new one 6 months ago. And in every case, when I get a new truck or a new extractor, it's like, why didn't I do this earlier? I could have been saving money earlier. Or in some cases, it's not even just about outright saving you money. It might be more efficient and it allows you to get more work done, which of course saves you money or makes you more money. And that's how we've grown. I just kept buying equipment as long as I could pay the payments, as long as I thought the piece of equipment would pay its own payments and savings, I'd do it. Had no hesitation. What turned me into a packer at one point, it was around 1998 or 99, I forget what year exactly. We had a terrible year. I just made no honey. And I had this customer base that I had generated and I didn't want to lose it. And so I had a friend down in South Georgia that says, "Bob, I've got a bunch of gallberry honey here. Why don't you just, I'll give you a good deal. Just buy barrels and pack it, keep your customers happy." And that's exactly what I did. I didn't try to fool anybody. I didn't lie to anybody. I said, "This is not my honey, but, this is what I'm doing." And I didn't even think of this, but I had a bad year, which meant everybody around me had a bad year too. So all these mom and pop produce stands and little markets that have to buy honey to keep going, they needed a source of honey. And I started getting phone calls from people I didn't know and saying, "We heard you have honey and what's your prices," and so on. And so I had to go back to South Georgia again. The first trip was 6 drums, and then I made another 6-drum trip and another 6-drum trip. The light bulb just went off, and I said, I can do this. And suddenly I was now a producer packer. These days, the packing is making more money for me than the beekeeping.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it has to be that way. I know some professional beekeepers that make a huge profit on their bees, but because of my location, it's a little less profitable to keep bees here than it would be, say, down in Florida or South Georgia. So the beekeeping has been diminishing a little bit, and I'm still doing it, and I'm still happy to do it, but the packing is what has been growing. The first year that I purchased honey and packed it and went that route, we grossed $19,000. I can remember the number. And for the first 3 years, I would hit the road and went to every little shop and store, produce stand that I thought would sell honey, and I'd try to sell them honey. And I was successful enough to, get things moving. But after 3 years, by the early 2000s, not only did I not have to do that, I didn't want to do it because it would have been too much business too fast. Mm-hmm. Since those early days, after 3 years, every single thing has come to me without me seeking it out. Even the Walmart account came to me. I was in a Walmart store looking at the honey, and the grocery manager walked up and said, "Can I help you?" And I was honest. I said, I was dressed in a white bee suit. I said, "I'm just looking at the honey. I'm a local beekeeper, and I was just curious what y'all charge and, comparing it to what I do." And he said, "I'd love to have local honey in this store." And he said, "It's quite a bit of red tape, but he said, if you're willing," he says, "I'll help you do it." And he did. If it wasn't for him, I never would have got into the Walmart. All the language and all the contracts, it's written by lawyers for lawyers. It really is. And I never would have finished it without his help. But he got me started. And I got in that one Walmart store, and then I was in. I had a vendor number for Walmart, which is like having a brick of gold, Once you got a vendor number, suddenly, the horizon broadens. And so now we're in 95 Walmarts, but everything since that point has been somebody coming to me without me seeking it out. And we've grown about 10 or 15% almost every year. There was 2 or 3 years where growth was almost nothing, just 1 or 2%, but every other year has been 10 or 15%. I'll let you do the math on starting at 19,000 with that kind of growth. It's huge. And I am not a businessman. I'm not educated in business, and the way my brain works, it's all up here. I'm terrible with spreadsheets and all that. It's all in my head, and somehow it's just happened, and I've been able to be successful. I have a friend over in Pickens he's doing almost the same thing I am, and he's successful like I am, and he said, "Well, Bob, all you got to do is just hold on to the wheel and hope the wheels don't fall off." And that's how it's felt, just riding the ride. It's been a big adventure, and it's just holding on for dear life, and somehow it's worked. And I'm very aware that it could go south. Many people try to do what I've done and they fail, and I've had an anxiety about that for many years, until just finally when like I mentioned, the last few years we finally got most of our assets paid down, and I own a lot of the inventory, and it's so much more comfortable now. I don't stay awake at night wondering how I'm going to make that $50,000 bank payment, a week from now.
Yeah.
And it's also been a journey of faith. I'll be really honest. I've been very blessed, and I've had blessings come my way that were just had no explanation at all, and just be right on time to help me make a deadline. And I have no doubt in my mind that there's been a divine part of this whole thing, and you can cut that out if you want. I know that's probably not what a lot of viewers want to hear, but I'm absolutely convinced that I've had divine intervention in my situation.
I can see that in my own life for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's interesting to me, the packing side of the business, the producer packer. I watched a documentary on John D. Rockefeller, Standard Oil.
Interesting man.
Very interesting. And he saw the truth in that business. Mm-hmm. People, and at the time frame, there was no electricity, so people were burning whale oil for light. Yeah. And then they started drilling oil wells and refining that into kerosene and coal oil lamps and all this. And so you've got this explosion of wildcatting in oil drilling, and a certain percentage of the wells come up and they're great, and then a lot of wells come up dry, and people are losing all kinds of money. And then on the consumer end of it, there is no standard in the refineries So they're putting out inferior products that are causing lamps to explode and burn down houses. And enter John D. Rockefeller, and he puts himself in the middle of these two. He says, I don't want the production risk. I don't want to drill oil wells that come up dry.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to buy oil from them, and then I'm going to master the refining of it to where I can put out a completely standard product that is safe for people to use. And that's what he did. He saw the truth in that business, and he may still be the most wealthy person in modern history if you adjust it for inflation.
Well, the honey business is a little bit like that. You're about to take this trek, this big adventure.
We'll see.
I know of several packers that have completely failed, just lost their complete homes and assets and life. Everything they owned is gone because they failed. And I've known others that just seem to be nothing but successful. The man I mentioned in Pickens and others, it's just like it just flows to them, and all they have to do is be there and accept the business. And I don't know what the trick is. I've just been really, really lucky. But I will say there's a little bit to it. I'll go back up on that. I've always tried to provide the best service I could, and yes, there was occasionally people that were unhappy for some reason that was beyond my control, but I always tried to do my very best, and I never tried to gouge anybody even when I could. I've always tried to play the middle ground on the pricing. I've always said there's two ways to make money: sell less for more and more for less, and I've always tried to play the middle ground. I know there's a market for the sell less for more. I know there's a place for that, and I know a few people doing that, and they're all about how many pennies can I squeeze out of this fancy gourmet jar of honey that's only 2 ounces for $20, that kind of. I just can't do that. It's just not me. I don't even want to do that, even if I could. We're producing a large quantity of product for the average consumer, and I like that place. I like to be in that place. And we try to do our product reasonably well. Obviously, I'm not using the best honey in the world. I can't afford to do that and sell it to the average consumer. But we're using a pretty good product with pretty good service. And even if I got to lose money, sometimes I will make good on something, and just to provide the service and do the right thing.